Your 6-month baby is in a car. Come to the other side and shoot my baby in the face. Then shoot her in the side. Then shoot her in the leg.
Oh, you're going.
You was intentionally trying to kill my daughter. For what? Because Carlos couldn't stop loving her?
That right there is the voice of a mother who had to bury her 31-year-old baby girl. Romika Meeks Blackman was her daughter, a 31-year-old mother and nursing student from Chicago's South Side. On the morning of September 8, 2025, she dropped her 6-year-old son off at school and packed his lunch with a handwritten note that said, "Happy Monday, son. This is a fresh start to this day, and you can start off strong. Always remain yourself. You're the coolest, smartest, and funniest kid I know. I love you so much. Love, Mommy." She posted that note to her social media that same morning, and she had absolutely no idea that those were going to be some of the last words she would ever leave behind for her child.
But behind the joy is the story of loss for the family of Romika Meeks Blackman. She was shot and killed back in September while dropping off her son at school.
About 40 minutes later, Romika was laying on the pavement outside, bleeding from gunshot wounds to her face and her thigh, while the man she shared a son with was standing nearby watching the whole thing go down. And right there on that same street, according to prosecutors, his new girlfriend gave him a fist bump as Romika was dying on the ground.
I was there. A writing statement. I got her arrested. There's a fucking gun on the street. I'm licensed to carry. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, bitch. You shot somebody, nigga. What the fuck wrong with you? Calm down. Calm the fuck down. He out his mother. He out his. She put the gun in the car. The gun she shot her. Let's go right here. She shot her. She shot her. She put the gun in the car. She put the gun in the car. The gun is in the car. Arrest.
We are going to walk through all of this together, the full history of this relationship, what the witnesses saw that morning, why it took almost 3 months before anybody got charged, and what Romika's grieving mother wants the whole world to understand. And before this video is done, you are going to find out exactly what went down on that school sidewalk, including the one detail that prosecutors say proves this was never self-defense. To really understand what happened that Monday morning, you need to know who Carlos Smith is, also called Carlos Loso Way. Carlos had a baby with Romika, and he also had a 6-month-old baby with another woman named Quadeja Johnson, who everybody online called Holly. So these two women had children by the same man at basically the same time, and by September of 2025, things between all three of them had been building up for years.
Her image, because I was sitting there while Carlos was talking to Holly and telling her, "Me, this is me." He told her, "Holly, we're not together. When did I ever say we're together? You just got pregnant. You fought for a man that could only fight for himself."
That is Romika's own sister, talking from personal experience about the kind of games Carlos was running on both women at the same time, feeding each one a different story. The two women were out here raising his kids and going to war over a man who, when you look at the facts, was never loyal to either one of them. Romika had a restraining order against Carlos when she was killed. He had been showing up and harassing her for so long that, according to her own mother, Romika used to park her car 5 whole blocks away from where she worked, just so Carlos would not see her car and come find her. She had already changed her phone number and had already moved. The only places he could still track her down were her job and her son's school, and that is exactly where he turned up.
Her co-workers came to my house yesterday. And she literally said, I asked her, I said, did Carlos ever come up there harassing Romika? She said, all the time. This is what he was doing. He said she said Romika used to park her car 5 blocks away almost and walked to work so he wouldn't see her car there. Because she moved. She changed her number.
Now, on Quadasia's side of things, she had already filed a no-contact order against Romika back in December of 2024, saying that Romika was sending threats through family members. That order was never served on Romika. She filed a second one in June of 2025, and that one was never served either. So both of these women had legal protection on paper, and none of that paperwork did anything useful on the morning of September 8th. That morning, investigators say Carlos drove Quadasia over to the area near 20 West Cermak Road, where her car was parked close to his home. They were putting their 6-month-old baby into the back seat of Quadasia's car. Romika had just dropped her son off at the nearby school and was driving back through that same area when she spotted them. And that is where the two sides of this story go in completely different directions. Prosecutors say an argument broke out between all three of them. According to witnesses who talked to police, Carlos pushed Quadasia out of the way, then turned around and slammed a car door into Romika and grabbed her in a chokehold. While Romika was being held down like that, Quadasia walked back to her car, reached inside, pulled out her legally owned 9mm handgun, and shot Romika one time.
The gun, she shot her? Let's go right here. She shot her. She shot her. She put the gun in the car. She put the gun in the car. The gun is in the car.
Then, according to prosecutors, she stopped, waited, and fired 2 more times. Police found 3 9mm shell casings at the scene. Romika was hit in the chin and the thigh and was rushed to Stroger Hospital, where she was pronounced dead a short time later. Prosecutors say Romika was unarmed. The baby that Quadasia shared with Carlos was sitting in the back seat of her car the whole time this was happening.
Your 6-month baby is in a car. Come to the other side and shoot my baby in the face. Then shoot her in the side, then shoot her in the leg.
Oh, you're going.
You was intentionally trying to kill my daughter. For what? Because Carlos couldn't stop loving her?
And the gun was legally hers. Because investigators said at that point there was not enough evidence to charge her right away, she was let go. For weeks, law enforcement told Romika's family almost nothing. Her mother, Tina McMiller, gave an interview where she explained how she even found out her daughter was dead. It was not a call from the police. It was a video somebody sent to her phone.
I got to the scene. Everybody was gone. I had got a video. This is how I found out that my baby had got shot. I got sent a video of my baby on the ground and a puddle of blood.
Meanwhile, Carlos called Romika's mother from the hospital, and what he said to her on that phone call is something her family has not stopped bringing up since then.
And he said, "Ma," I said, "she's gone." And there was a pause. And he said, "This is all my fault."
The big question sitting in the middle of all of it was this: was Romika actually the aggressor, or was she a woman who got set up and killed and now the whole narrative was being flipped on her after her death? The first big move in the public conversation came from a woman who said she had been Holly's best friend since they were kids in kindergarten, and that she had also personally spoken to Romika before everything happened. She put out a series of Facebook posts and they spread all over the internet fast.
Y'all are loud and wrong about a lot, still. I know it's a touchy subject because of crash outs and baby mama or baby daddy drama, but a lot of y'all just pulling shit out y'all ass, as y'all do daily for a Facebook check and or to go viral. If you're gonna speak, at least know what you're talking about or wait for the facts to come out. I've been friends with Holly since kindergarten and have spoken to Meeks as well. Men will be men, and even less. However, both these ladies aren't around their kids RN, which will probably never have a bond now over this man. Meeks might have fought over this man 50 million times, but she was a good mom, period.
She went on to say Holly's car was blocked in that morning, that Holly was not the one who came there looking for trouble, and Holly's newborn baby was in the back seat when the whole thing started. She also pushed back hard on people who were saying Holly was jealous of Romika.
Saying Holly was jealous when she clearly had and still have loss is insane. He chose her. What would she be jealous about?
Then, Holly's bestie shared what she described as the real picture of how Romika had been moving in the weeks before the shooting.
Girl went live stalking Holly from a separate device, refreshing her page saying "Where you at?", watching Holly like the news for the world to see. She had no shame in stalking Holly. She was furious she couldn't get to her to beat her up like she did everybody else over loss.
Somebody else dropped a response that told a very different story. According to this other account, Romika made a U-turn on her way to the freeway after dropping her son off, saw Carlos, and went to confront him, not Holly. A security guard who was working in the area told police that Romika was arguing with Carlos, not with Holly, in the moments right before everything blew up. This person went even further, saying Holly was actually the one who came ready to pop off the moment she laid eyes on Romika for the very first time. They flat out said Holly lied about Romika threatening her and her family. In fact, Holly was the aggressor. That's why she's locked up and facing murder 1, away from her 9-month-old who witnessed a murder at newborn stage. While all of this was playing out on social media, people with legal backgrounds were jumping in to explain what the self-defense argument would actually need to prove in a real courtroom.
A lot of this, whether or not the Holly Johnson self-defense is going to work, depends upon whether Holly Johnson felt like there were imminent threats of serious bodily harm, whether or not what she did was proportional. If she was, believed it was self-defense, was it proportional self-defense? And would the reasonable person have believed that it was necessary to act in that way?
This analyst also raised something a lot of people were not paying attention to in all the drama: the real possibility that Holly and Carlos could end up being used against each other in court. Carlos could be brought in as a witness for the prosecution, and nobody at that point knew what was saved on their phones, what their texts said, or exactly what the security camera footage was actually showing.
It's entirely possible, that Holly and Carlos will be turned against each other. Carlos might be a witness for the prosecution. Holly may also be a potential witness if they charge Carlos, one of them.
Then, Carlos did something that was, by almost any measure, completely foul. On the exact same day Romika was being buried, he put out old videos of her from their relationship, videos that showed her angry, loud, and coming at him. The whole point was obvious. He was trying to get ahead of the story and make people see Romika as the troublemaker before the trial even started.
Tap in when somebody keep lying to somebody. Why did you lie? Tell me why you lied. Tell me why you lied. Why did you lie? Why you lie so much? Why do you lie so much? I'm talking to you. What? Talk to me and I'll throw it down.
That is audio from one of those recordings. That is Romika going at Carlos, clearly hurt and reacting to being lied to. Investigative journalist Steph Watts, who had been following the case closely, did not hold back on what he thought about that move.
Also, it was a day that Carlos chose to release not favorable videos of Romika, which to me is just absolutely appalling. Why we had to see those, her screaming at him, you know what I mean? To me, it's just unfathomable that would happen.
Watts and others covering the case said it plainly. Dropping those videos the day of her funeral was a direct attempt to destroy her character in public before any jury ever got to hear the full story. It landed the way Carlos wanted it to land with some people, but for the family who was literally at her burial that same day, it was one of the most disrespectful things they had ever seen. Here's what we know based on what prosecutors put on the official record once the charge came down. The reason all three of them ended up in the same spot that morning was not some random coincidence. Carlos and Quidaja had spent the whole weekend together, and Carlos lived on the same block as the school where Romika dropped her son off every day. Carlos knew Romika's route. He knew she would pass through there. What prosecutors told the court was especially damaging when it came to that pause between the first shot and the two that followed. Under Illinois law, self-defense only works if the force you used matches the danger you were actually in at that moment. When a person stops and then shoots again, that gives them time to think, to decide to stop, to walk away. Quidaja did not stop. She fired again 2 more times. And then, according to prosecutors, Quadesia gave Carlos a fist bump while Rumika was still bleeding out on the ground right in front of them. When the judge heard that detail, he said that somebody celebrating in the street right after a shooting is not how a person acts when they genuinely believed they were fighting for their life. Bond was denied. Almost 3 full months went by between the morning Rumika died and the day Quadesia Johnson was finally arrested and charged. 3 months where Rumika's family was holding vigils, doing interviews, demanding answers from the system, and watching the woman they believed killed their daughter living her regular life out in Wisconsin like nothing happened. On December 3, 2025, Quadesia Johnson was arrested at her home in Des Plaines, Illinois. The following day, she was charged with first-degree murder, and at the hearing that came after that, a lot of what had been floating around as rumor and social media talk was finally put on the official record for everyone to see. Prosecutors told the court that Quadesia had never actually seen Rumika in person before the day of the shooting. Everything between them had happened through other people, through family members passing messages, social media, voicemails, and phone calls. The protection order Quadesia filed in June only talked about threats that came through other people. There had been no face-to-face meeting, no physical fight, nothing that showed Rumika had ever actually come directly at Holly before that morning. That detail is important because Holly's whole defense is built on the idea that she was genuinely scared of Rumika and that the threats she received were serious enough to justify what she did. But the prosecution's argument is simple. You cannot say you were afraid of someone you had never even been in the same room with and then shoot her the very first time you see her face to face. The judge agreed with the prosecution that the evidence was strong enough to keep Quadesia locked up without bail, and she has been in custody ever since December 4th. For the first time after the murder charge came down, Carlos Smith sat in front of a camera and talked to Fox Chicago.
When I heard it, I'm just looking, it was unbelievable, but I was there. And I know for a fact none of that happened, how they just explained it. But my truth will get out here, and I hope everybody understand. That's really it. I can't even say too much right now, because it's just gonna feel like I'm going against them, they going against me, we just going back and forth. But the truth is gonna come out.
He did not say he was not there or did not watch Rumika get killed. What he disputed was the specific way prosecutors described what he did, the chokeholds, the sequence of events, the role he played according to the witnesses. The reporter covering the story also said Carlos reached out to her directly by FaceTime, saying the witnesses had it wrong and questioning how they could be certain about what they said they saw. What Carlos still has not answered publicly is why he called Rumika's mother from the hospital that day and told her it was all his fault. Legal commentators have spent a lot of time breaking down what charges could realistically stick here. First-degree murder means you planned to kill someone ahead of time. That is the hardest charge to prove in a situation like this one, where the physical confrontation itself was not planned, even if the tension building up to it had been going on for months. The charge that Watts said his sources in law enforcement were actually leaning toward was voluntary manslaughter, which covers a killing that happens in the heat of a moment, where the person meant to cause harm but did not go there that day with a plan to kill. What the state decided to charge her with in the end, though, was first-degree murder, and prosecutors pointed directly at that pause between shots and the fist bump afterward as proof that this was not some panicked reaction. It was a decision, they argued, and she made it clearly. While all the legal back and forth keeps moving, Rumika's mother, Tina McMiller, has been carrying the heaviest load publicly, and it is genuinely painful to watch. She is fighting DCFS right now just to keep custody of her own grandson, Rumika's son, while Carlos is apparently trying to get access to the boy again. The state's attorney's office has not been communicating with her the way a mother deserves after losing her child.
I'm fighting right now with DCFS so I can keep my grandbaby. It's so much going on. It's so much pressure.
But even through all of that, she has been showing up to tell the world exactly who Rumika was as a person.
What kind of woman are you? She allowed you and Carlos to take her baby out with your child to eat dinner. Don't make her look like she's a monster, because she's not.
Rumika's sister has been just as direct about where she places the blame in all of this, and she does not ask anybody to feel sorry for the adults who made choices. Her focus is what was done to the kids caught in the middle.
This is a prime example of a man telling one woman a story and telling the other woman a story. So now when the other woman sees, you say you don't want to be bothered with her, you keep calling. You say you don't like her, you keep showing up. You say you don't want to be with her, you keep trying. I cannot get rid of this girl, so I am going to get rid of this girl. That's all it is.
Right now, Quadesia Johnson is still in custody facing a first-degree murder charge. If she is convicted, she is looking at life in prison. She was 7 weeks pregnant when she got arrested, and her legal team has gone back to the judge multiple times asking for her to be released. The judge has said no every single time. Carlos Smith has not been charged with anything connected to Rumika's death. A petition on change.org calling for his arrest as an accomplice has thousands of signatures behind it because the people signing it believe a man who holds someone in a chokehold so his girlfriend can shoot them is not a witness, he is a participant. The one person who cannot speak for herself anymore is Rumika. The woman at the center of all of this is no longer here to explain what happened from her side. She cannot tell the court what she saw that morning when she turned that corner after dropping her son off at school. She cannot describe what was said in those final seconds before the first shot rang out. She cannot explain whether she felt fear, anger, or shock when the confrontation started. All that is left now are the pieces of her life that other people remember. Friends describe Rumika as someone who had been trying to rebuild her life step by step. Nursing school was not easy. Anyone who has gone through clinical rotations, exams, and long hours of studying knows how demanding that path can be. Yet Rumika was doing it while raising a young child on her own. That alone tells you a lot about her mindset. Her classmates said she showed up to class exhausted sometimes, but she showed up anyway. She was determined to finish what she started. Becoming a nurse was not just a career goal for her, it was a way to create stability for her son. Family members say she talked constantly about the future she wanted for him. A safer neighborhood, better schools, more opportunities than she had growing up. When people talk about Rumika today, those are the details they return to. Not the arguments that ended up online, not the drama that surrounded the relationship with Carlos. They talk about the quiet things that defined her day-to-day life. Packing lunches, studying late at night, picking up her son from school, helping him with homework. Those ordinary moments are what her family misses the most. Her mother, Tina McMiller, has said in multiple interviews that what hurts the most is knowing her grandson still asks for his mother. At 7 years old, children do not understand court cases, legal arguments, or criminal charges. They only understand absence. He knows his mom used to walk him into school. He knows she used to write him notes. And now she is gone. That reality is what keeps Rumika's family speaking out publicly about the case. For them, the issue is not just about punishment, it is about accountability and making sure the story of what happened does not get twisted beyond recognition. Because in high-profile cases like this, narratives form quickly. One side says Rumika came looking for a fight. Another side says she walked into a situation she had been trying to avoid for months. The truth is going to be decided in a courtroom based on witness testimony, phone records, surveillance video, and forensic evidence. Investigators are expected to present everything they collected from the scene: the shell casings, the trajectory of the bullets, the distances between the people involved, and the statements given by witnesses who were nearby that morning. But there are also digital footprints that could play a major role. Text messages, call logs, social media conversations. If there were threats, arguments, or planning happening before that morning, prosecutors will likely try to show it, and defense attorneys will try to argue the opposite. That is how cases like this unfold, one piece of evidence at a time, one witness at a time, until a jury eventually decides what actually happened on that sidewalk. Another factor that could become extremely important is Carlos Smith himself. Right now, he sits in a strange position legally. He was physically present when the shooting happened. Witnesses say he restrained Romika, but he has not been charged with a crime connected to her death. That could change depending on what prosecutors believe they can prove. In some cases, a person who assists or enables a killing could be charged as an accomplice. In other situations, prosecutors decide to use that person as a cooperating witness instead. It all depends on evidence, and evidence takes time to build. That explains part of why it took nearly 3 months before Quadaja Johnson was arrested. Investigators had to review surveillance cameras from the surrounding area, speak to witnesses multiple times, examine physical evidence from the scene, and consult with prosecutors about which charges could actually hold up in court. When they finally announced the charge of first-degree murder, it signaled that prosecutors believed they could prove intent. That is not a small decision. First-degree murder carries some of the most serious penalties in the criminal justice system. If a jury ultimately agrees with the prosecution's argument, Quadaja Johnson could face the possibility of spending the rest of her life in prison. Her defense team will almost certainly focus on self-defense. They will likely argue that the history of threats made her believe she was in real danger. They may question witness credibility. They may challenge the interpretation of that pause between the shots. Those legal battles will take months, possibly years, to fully resolve. But while lawyers argue inside courtrooms, Romeka's family is living with the aftermath every single day. Her mother has been speaking publicly not just about the investigation, but also about the personal struggle she is facing right now with the state agency responsible for child welfare. After Romeka's death, the question of who will raise her son became another complicated legal issue. Instead of simply being allowed to step in and care for her grandson, Tina McMiller says she has had to fight through layers of bureaucracy just to keep him with family. For her, that battle is almost as painful as the loss itself, because every time she looks at the boy, she sees her daughter. She sees the same smile, the same eyes, the same personality beginning to form, and she knows that the person who should be there guiding him through childhood is no longer alive. That is the part of this story that sometimes gets lost in the headlines. People argue online about who is right and who is wrong. They debate self-defense laws. They pick sides between adults involved in a toxic relationship. But at the center of it all are children. A 7-year-old boy who lost his mother. A baby who was sitting in the backseat of a car while a shooting happened just feet away. Those are lives that will be shaped by this moment for decades. Romeka's sister has spoken openly about that reality. She has said that adults make choices, and sometimes those choices spiral into situations that cannot be undone. But the children in those situations are the ones who carry the consequences the longest. That perspective is why Romeka's family keeps emphasizing who she was outside of the conflict. They want people to remember the nursing student, the mother who wrote encouraging notes to her son, the woman who is trying to create a better life. Because once someone becomes the center of a criminal case, their identity can easily get reduced to a single moment of tragedy. For Romeka, her family refuses to let that happen. They want the world to understand that before the police reports, before the courtroom arguments, before the viral videos and social media debates, she was simply a mother starting another ordinary Monday morning, packing a lunch, writing a note, dropping her child off at school, and believing she would see him again that afternoon. What do you think about this case? Do you think Romeka was the aggressor? Let me know what you think in the comment section. Also, click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this. See you in the next one.